www.offthecorner.net. You're watching the Fact Project, and Fact, of course, is an acronym that stands for Fundamental African Centered Thought. The goal here on the Fact Project is to convey some facts and some information to members of our community. We have joining us today a very special guest, a man who is a longtime activist. As you can see, the title of the talk is I've been an activist for 66 years. We have Mr. Leo Burroughs joining us today. Good morning, Mr. Leo Burroughs. Thank you for joining us on the Fact Project today.
Grand Rising, I'm glad to be with you. I'm Leo W. Burroughs, Jr.
Let me get it right. Leo W. Burroughs, Jr. We appreciate
That's right. My father would exit the grave if I didn't use Jr.
That's funny. Okay. Okay. He would be looking for you. Okay.
He was always admonishing me. Now, look, don't let him get us confused. I said, okay, sir.
That's funny. That's funny. All right, so you've been an activist and you're in the Baltimore area. Since it's your first time on the program, tell the audience a little bit about who you are, where you were born, where you grew up, and so forth.
Well, I was born March the 11th, 1942 in the McCullough Homes, the public housing project here in Baltimore City. And I subsequently attended the 122 Elementary School on Preston and Pennsylvania Avenue, the Samuel Coleridge Taylor Elementary School. Going on to my family, Leo Burroughs Sr. and Willa Mae Taylor, who was her maiden name, my mother, Willa Mae Burroughs, moving to Cherry Hill in 1950, which was a suburb of Baltimore City, and attending the Cherry Hill Junior High School and subsequently graduating from the Frederick Douglass Senior High School in February 1960 to attend what was then Morgan State College. Of course, it's now a university.
Okay. And you said you got involved in activism beginning in 1960. How did that begin?
Well, when I entered Morgan State in February 1960, remember, although today you can only graduate in June, back then you could come out either in the February class or the June class. In fact, my mother graduated from Frederick Douglass High School in February 1940. And Perrin Mitchell was in her class, and Sam Daniels, some other famous activists and Congress people in our area. But 3 months after entering Morgan State University as a freshman, the sit-in demonstration started in Greensboro, North Carolina, the sit-ins and freedom rides. And that projection altered my life in the sense that I became a civil rights activist and later a civil rights leader under the direction of Clarence Logan, the chairman of the Civic Interest Group, the CIG Civic Interest Group, the student sit-in activists and freedom riders in the state of Maryland. And subsequent to that, of course, we spearheaded the sit-in demonstrations in places of public accommodation in Baltimore City, as well as coordinating the freedom rides on the eastern shore of Maryland. And that is, in essence, how I became involved initially with the Congress of Racial Equality and the Civic Interest Group, both organizations.
Okay, so it was the sit-in movement. It was trying to basically do away with some of the humiliation that came along with segregation and some of the other demoralizing things that came along with that, right?
That's right. Places of public accommodation. We felt that we were, as taxpayers, we were guaranteed a seat in movie theaters and restaurants and other places of public accommodation. And we had to fight to make that happen. That was important at that time even though in hindsight there are people who complain about, well, you shouldn't have done it and it wasn't what we should have focused on. Well, we focused on what history ordained that we focused on, which was at that time respect for our right as citizens to be respected.
Now, let me ask you this. On that note, do you think if we fought for creating an independent reality for ourselves, would that have been a better move in retrospect?
Well, it evolved that way. Yeah, in retrospect, I would agree. I only learned about Marcus Garvey after I entered. I heard about Marcus Garvey, but I only learned more about him after I entered college. Okay. And the Black Star Line and those kinds of things, which I think were terrific. But it's been a process of growth, development, learning, evolution for me and for many others to grow into advocates for Black power. Because at that point we were integrationists, and we have evolved. I have evolved certainly into an advocate of Black power and self-determination.
Okay, so I'm glad you said that. Black power. And you said self-determination, which was the chief concept that came out of the Black Power movement. How do you define the term Black power for clarity?
I'm looking, I guess we have to look at it in the context of, initially it had to do with voting, controlling our lives in terms of economics. Economics has always been important, but that was drummed into us, the importance of why we utilize boycotting or selective buying campaigns as a strategy to ensure that we get a fair piece of the pie. Patronizing and supporting Black businesses and promoting that collectivity in response to what it takes to own and control your destiny.
Understood. Okay, so you've been fighting for justice for a long time. We're going to get into some of the things that you've been involved in outside of the sit-in movement. But from your lived experience, is fighting for justice easy?
Well, no, it isn't. And yet, if you have integrity, if you've got courage, some of us say we love the Lord and we say we're Christian or we believe in God, but you have to back up you've got to put your body where your mouth is. You've got to set an example. You've got to witness by example. I think that's something Martin Luther King Jr. did, and many, many other Black men and women who fought and died that we might be free for hundreds of years and thousands of years. So, yeah, it's not easy, but you have to have the courage of your convictions. We started out with promoting nonviolence, and I think in some form or fashion, it's ideologically idealistic. I understand it. I think it's great for some people, but I don't rule out utilizing any type or kind of strategy today, in today's world, to by any means necessary to ensure our continued existence and longevity as a people.
Absolutely. Malcolm X said that after he left the Nation of Islam, he said, I believe in today not fighting on one front, but on all fronts. So I share that sentiment. The civil rights movement focused not on economic development per se, but it voted more on political power and the right to vote. Is voting the only solution for people of African heritage in America?
No, not at all. Civil rights movement evolved in knowing that the civic interest group of which I was an officer and public relations director and a recruitment committee chair, we were a member organization of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC. And as such, that's where the boycotting came in. That's where a greater realization of the economics which we have to have to ensure our existence came from. At that point in time, I didn't know, I'd read something, but Black Wall Street and other kinds of Rosewood and other kinds of initiatives that pointed to the fact that we historically had been successful, but in the course of being successful, we came under physical attack from those forces in the white community, those elements of violence that would destroy us by any means necessary. So, yeah, it's more than voting, which is important. It has to be co-equal. It's got to be economic. It's got to be political. It's got to be education. If we don't control the education of our children, we're dead on arrival. And that's a major problem today in Baltimore and throughout this country and this world.
Okay, now, culture is part of how you educate a group. Do we need to disconnect from the status quo culture right now in order for us to really bring about, what's referred to as Black life? Life is LIFE, liberation, independence, freedom, and empowerment. Do we need to have our own way of educating our children ourselves and disconnect from their culture?
Well, it's a part of change. Most of us are hooked into the public school system and charter schools, but that should be transitional. And when I say transitional, it may take 15 or 20 more years or so, but we've got to do what I recall we did in the 70s when I lived in Chicago, Illinois. And there was something called CIBI, C-I-B-I, Council of Independent Black Institutions. And we had some schools that we owned and controlled. And in course of time, we're down to very few places that we own and control. We've got to get back to what we started initially, and that is we have to control the education of our children.
Okay.
Am I answering your question?
Absolutely, yes. For those that are just joining us, we're talking to longtime activist. I will consider him a long-distance revolutionary, Baba Leo Burroughs. He's been involved in activism for 66 years, beginning in 1960s, or 1960 rather. For the people in the chat, just let me know if the audio is coming across well. Peace to Hassan Burton. That's Fact Family from day one. Brother Hassan, I did respond to your comment on the video about the book. If you need to get more information on that or you need the link, let me know today before we get off, and I'll put that in the chat. Mr. Leo Burroughs, you began your activism in 1960, getting involved in the sit-in movement, which was coming primarily from college students. What other activism were you involved in subsequent to the sit-in movement?
Well, my listing is as follows. I can recall in the 60s having been part of that civil rights movement, as I said, in Baltimore City, but I was asked by the Crusade for Voters and the Virginia State Conference of NAACP branches to assist in coordinating the voter registration efforts in the 3rd Congressional District in Virginia. And so that was in 1964. And subsequent to that, I put together a team. There were 6 of us. Frank McDougall was the assistant field director. I was the field director. And we were awarded for outstanding services in the field of voter registration in the 3rd Congressional District of Virginia by the NAACP there, which comprised Richmond, Fredericksburg, Roanoke, Virginia, etc., Fauquier County, Virginia, Fairfax County, etc. So we focused at that point in time. I moved to Falls Church, Virginia, to work with the Fairfax Community Action Program as Director of Community Development. I had an office in Bailey's Crossroads, Virginia, and coordinated the efforts of a staff of 8 people. Our job, we were funded by the United States Office of Economic Opportunity, which was a poverty program at that point in time. And subsequently, after 2 years there, I moved into Alexandria, Virginia. I was hired by the Washington branch the Alexandria branch of the Washington Urban League to serve as a director of its Project Surge, Services United in Responsible and Gainful Employment. And I subsequently served there for at least 3 years in Alexandria, Virginia. And while there, I made use of my activist training to work with the community to spearhead efforts to fight police brutality and the racist efforts on the part of city officials to maintain a Confederate States of America demeanor. In other words, they were still flying in the 70s, early 70s, Confederate flags in Alexandria, Virginia. Wow. So we made them take them damn Confederate flags down. In fact, for purposes of demonstration, we bought a Confederate flag, dragged it past the boyhood home of Robert E. Lee in Alexandria, brought that flag down to City Hall and ripped it into shreds.
That's a good demonstration. That's a good action. Continue.
Yeah, well, I needed police protection after that, I'll tell you.
Of course. I'm sure you did.
They were coming out of the woodworks, but subsequently I moved on from that position with the Urban League to a job with Control Systems Research out of Arlington, Virginia, another program funded by the Federal Office of Economic Opportunity. This program was the Emergency Food and Medical Services Program, and I was given a choice to move to Chicago or Georgia.
Okay.
Atlanta, Georgia, and I chose Chicago.
What year are we talking about?
1970. Yeah, early 1970. I was with them for a year there. I moved to Chicago. I stayed with Control Systems Research in Chicago for at least another year before becoming a community organizer for a group called Centers for New Horizons Early Childhood Education Program based in the public housing projects of Chicago. Okay. Let me backtrack just for a moment. The Control Systems Research business required that we disseminate information throughout the Midwest and Indian reservations on how to best utilize emergency food and medical services provided by the government.
Okay, so you were in 1970. I do want to kind of dial it back a little bit. You did meet Martin Luther King in the 1960s. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I thought you were going to walk me through. There's so much happening. Well, I can tell you this. In 1963, I attended the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. In fact, I helped to coordinate mobilizing buses and folks to go into Washington for that I Have a Dream speech, which was a tremendously impressive and great occasion. But in 64 was the first and only time I had a chance to shake Dr. King's hand and talk with him. And that was on October 31st, 1964, a year after the I Have a Dream speech, when he came to Baltimore City, Maryland, to the Prince Hall Masonic Temple on 1307 Utah Place. And he was here for a Get Out the Vote rally, sponsored by the Masonic Order and the Black Ministers Alliance and civil rights organizations, the Interdenominational Ministers Alliance and others. And I had a chance to talk with him and shake his hand and basically have listened to him perform another oration of greatness by virtue of what he was saying and why he was saying it. So that was my only time to shake his hand and meet him, but I was impressed. And we had a mutual friend in the person of John Moody. John Moody Sr., by the way, was a personal friend and confidant of Stokely Carmichael, which, of course, you know, Stokely later changed his name to Kwame Ture.
That's correct.
So all these links come into play here in in Maryland and in Chicago.
Okay, now let me jump in here and ask you this. To the rest of us, the great Dr. Martin Luther King seemed a little prestigious and kind of buttoned up. What can you tell us about who he was as a personality?
Well, I was still a student at Morgan when I met him in '64, and I idolized him in the sense that I thought he was just such a great leader. That's my own perspective. When I got to meet him at the Prince Hall Masonic Temple, I found him to be a very comfortable, down-to-earth brother who was not just a family man, but he was a fun guy. And I while you hear the propaganda about he and Stokely not agreeing about this, that, and the other, you hear about that. But they were backslapping each other on October 31st, 1964, when I met him at the temple. They were just having such a good time, joking and kidding. And so I was very pleased, but a little surprised. I thought he is dignified, but he was just a regular guy, which made me feel that much more comfortable for having had the experience of meeting him.
Wow, that's a great story. You left off at the Center for New Horizons. I want you to pick it up from there in terms of your activism.
Well, Centers for New Horizons Early Childhood Education Program. Chicago, Illinois, had 5 public housing projects. Illinois. My job as a staff assistant, basically meaning community organizer, was to help organize the parent component in ways that ensured that parents could become or would become self-determined administrators and leaders of efforts to educate Black children using a curriculum which the Centers for New Horizons had designed. Brother Latham Johnson was the CEO and director of the Centers for New Horizons, and a graduate of Dar es Salaam University in Africa, had his master's and so forth, and just a brilliant guy who he changed his name later. His name changed to Sakoni Karanja, but just a great guy to follow, and he introduced me to Kwanzaa. I didn't learn anything about Kwanzaa until that was 1970, I guess 72. I went to work for them at the end of 71. 72 was my first introduction to Kwanzaa as the first fruits of the African harvest. And that has been a mainstay for me ever since. While in Chicago, now that was a paid job in Chicago. The unpaid job in Chicago, I lived in South Shore community, was founding a group called the 5 Block Club, which I lived at 72nd and Coles, 1 block from the South Shore Country Club. And we said 5 blocks, but it actually encompassed 7 blocks of homeowners and renters, which shows you that folks can work together. They don't have to be in classes separated. And we were able to, for at least the 5 or 6 years that I remained in Chicago, organize that community in ways in which we looked out for each other and we helped each other ensure the maintenance of city services. We filed a lawsuit against the federal government at that point in time about its failure to maintain housing under HUD, Housing and Urban Development Administration. And we were just very cohesive in working there. I became the vice president of the advisory board for the South Shore National Bank at that time, and a commissioner also for the South Shore Commission. I left Chicago around 1979, 80 to come back to Baltimore. My mother had a stroke, and I'm the only child, and so I figured it was my duty to come back home.
Okay.
And so I came back home to my church, the Concord Baptist Church, and scouting, because as a boy, I was in the Cub Scouts, and I later joined the Boy Scouts of America. And so coming back, they were glad to have me back at church because they wanted me to start a scout troop, which I did.
Okay.
And subsequently, I fused the ideology of scouting and survival training and camping and first aid and so forth with that of the civil rights movement to form what I am now, the president and CEO and founder of the Roots of Scouting Incorporated, the 501c3. And we're going to be celebrating our 46th anniversary, Roots of Scouting Incorporated. African Heritage Honors Brunch on Saturday, February the 28th of this year. So I've been busy.
Yeah, I want to drill down more on that topic of survival and preparedness. I do want to recognize a few people. Henry Cedillo, who's been Fact Family from day one, is in the chat. I want to say shout out to him, and shout out in respect to DJ Tiger, who's making all of this possible right now. We're talking to a longtime activist, long distance revolutionary, Baba Leo Burroughs, and he's kind of going through his history of all of the activism that he's been involved with. You talked about survival, and we just had a major snowstorm come through the country. And I think we need to also talk about the subject of preparedness. What more can you tell us about survival and preparedness?
Well, one of the things, fundamentally, you're teaching children as early as they're able to learn about, from a health and wellness point of view, what to eat, proper foods to eat, what constitutes proper nutrition, which speaks to the fact that too many of us still are diabetic because we don't eat right. When it comes to camping, that outdoor experience of summer camping, where I think it should be introduced initially, but winter camping, how to set up tents, how to utilize sleeping bags, how to have a bug out bags if you need be, with not just matches, but those kinds of dehydrated foods and non-perishables that you need to make it in a critical situation. I always say, folks tell me, well, it's too cold to come out. Well, if your house catches on fire, you're going to come out. Right. You've got to appreciate the land. This goes back, what happens to many of us in the urban areas. We get so caught up, we don't know how to grow our own foods. Our ancestors did it, but it wasn't, for many of us, we're not farming anymore, either in the rural communities or in urban centers. We've got to get back to gardening. We've got to know how, in some situations, how to trap animals if need be. All those basic kinds of things that we've gotten away from. It's good for our health to drink water. More water than anything else. We don't have to overdo it, but we have to drink water.
Yeah, I don't eat animals. I leave the animals alone. But yeah, water is very important. Now, let me ask you this. I wrote a book. It's called FACT. FACT, of course, is an acronym that stands for Fundamental African-Centered Thought. In the book, I said the ultimate solution for us as people of African heritage is to get self-sufficient control of all of our basic human survival needs. That's our food, clothes, shelter, education, medication, and self-defense. Did I get that right?
Yes, sir, you did. And remember the book, Preparedness Now. Does that ring a bell?
It does, yes.
Preparedness Now by Aton Edwards. He was the director of International Preparedness Network, an emergency survival guide for civilians and their families. Preparedness Now. I've got it here in front of me.
Okay.
It's an older book, but it's superb in its illustrations and what it talks about in terms of what we should know about taking care of ourselves fundamentally.
Let me ask you this. Speaking of education, educating ourselves and having our own institutions, our own schools, our own businesses and establishments, there's a Baltimore school for boys right now that the system is trying to shut down. What can you tell us about this fight for the Baltimore School for Boys?
The Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys is headed up by Brother Edwin. And it's been in operation for a little more than 10 years. They have a 90% graduation rate. And of course, it's been very effective. It's very popular among many of us. They are a charter school, and as such, they fall under the authority of the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners and its outgoing CEO, Sonia Santelises, Dr. Santelises, who's been very hostile, very cruel as far as I'm concerned with respect. And she's a Negro. Classically, I'm calling her a Negro.
Understood.
But she's been very anti-Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys. And I'm hoping that Brother Edwin Avent is his last name, A-V-E-N-T. Brother Edwin Avent will appeal the decision. He said he's got to take it to his board. He wants to appeal it, but his board has to determine at the collegiate school whether, since they have to secure an attorney and others and take legal action, whether it's worth it to appeal. I hope they appeal because it serves as a point of helping us mobilize behind efforts of self-determination such as his and others to educate our own.
Let me jump in here and ask you this. Why would a black woman be against a school for black boys? Is she playing for the white side of the chessboard?
Well, in my opinion, yeah. She's been in this system we have here in this city for maybe 14 years. Prior to her becoming the CEO of Baltimore City Public Schools, and they're paying her with benefits up to $400,000 a year. She was the chief academic officer for the previous CEO, who I call him a white Cuban, Andreas Alonso, who lowered the grade point average passing grade from 70 to 60 during his administration. So she was working with him for at least 6 or 7 years before she spent the last 5 or 6 years here in this school system. So it was preordained that in terms of the power structure, the schools here are funded principally by the state of Maryland, but the mayor, Brandon Scott, appoints the commissioners. 8 of the commissioners are appointed by Brandon Scott. Only 2 are elected. We'd like to see a fully elected school board, which doesn't exist here. Brandon has not been supportive of the Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys. The Legislative Black Caucus in Annapolis, Maryland, which is the largest black caucus of any legislative group in the United States. I think there are 52 black people in our state legislature. They have not formally supported the school.
And what's her name? Say her name again so we all know who we're against.
Well, the CEO of Baltimore City Public Schools is Sonia Santelises.
Okay.
Sonia Santelises. She's Dr. Santelises. And, you know, her girl, she had 2 children, was in school. But those children, of course, never attended any public schools anywhere in the state.
Isn't that
they went to Garrison Garrison Forest with a tuition, I believe, somewhere in the neighborhood of $38,000 a year, tuition of a white prep school, private school in Baltimore County.
Now, let me ask you this, because I'm noticing a lot of elected officials, they go hard trying to promote the public school. Meanwhile, their children go to charter school, not even charter school, but private schools. Are the teachers' unions giving these elected officials some money under the table or helping to fund their campaign?
Well, I'll tell you the truth. The Baltimore Teacher Union, I don't know where they stand on this issue right now. They've been silent.
Okay.
4 or 5 years ago, they were doing something. Now they're silent. I'll say this. In some of the schools here, and we're still 65% of the population Black in this Baltimore city, but some of our neighborhood schools have a 60% white faculty or white teachers. They're incentivizing white people to teach our children in public schools in Baltimore City such as never before. But they're not incentivizing efforts to recruit Black men or Black women to come into our school system.
Yeah, no.
And that's bad, because when I came up and I was in this city years ago, because my birthday is March 11th, I'll be 84. I remember in middle school, I had Black male teachers. In high school, I had Black male teachers. Now we've gone backwards. We don't have what we had, and we got to rebound and regain our traction.
Now, Leo Burroughs, let me ask you this. We see a lot in the mainstream media, young Black people acting very negatively. They listening to bad rap music. The rap music is not promoting positive relationships or anything positive. The students that attend this school are very upset that their school is being closed because their focus is education. We don't see that on the television. What can you tell us about how the students are reacting to the news that their school is going to close?
Well, some of the students have testified before the Board of School Commissioners. Some of them, the age range for the Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys is from the 4th through the 8th grade. And they plan to perhaps do some early childhood education futuristically. The students and parents want to see their school survive. We've had some other Black charter schools that have suffered the same fate as the Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys, predating what has happened here in the last month or two. In fact, 3 years ago, they tried to close the Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys unsuccessfully. This time, they're back with long knives, trying to do the same kind of thing here. So we've got a lot of people who don't have the courage to stand up to do the right thing. And we have to utilize, I understand we got social media today and we've got AI and so forth, but we've got to do some basic knocking on doors kinds of mobilizing people in terms of getting people involved to the extent that they understand that without collective action, individual action in and of itself is not going to make it. We've got to strengthen our collective resolve to save ourselves. And so that means you've got to counterbalance, push back against the brainwashing that continues to prevail with the aid of social media in our city and throughout the country.
Now, speaking of throughout the country, is there anything that my viewers and listeners could do to help you in your effort to save the school?
Well, yeah, I would say that do you have his, when I say his, Brother Edwin A. Vance fax or cell or anything of that nature?
I do not know.
Can you take it down, or should I give it to you off air and you deal with it later?
No, give it to me now. I'll put that in the chat. So go ahead. We're all ears. Go ahead.
All right. The fax number for Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys is 800-784-5800. 0674.
All right, so hold on, save that thought. I'm gonna put that. That just went into the chat. And so go ahead. What's the next number?
All right, the cell number, and his cell is important. He's 443
okay
226 5118. 443 226 5118. This is a cell number for Edmund Avent. In fact, I would call the cell before accessing the facts.
Okay. So
I would do it that way. And you can give them my number as well.
Go ahead.
My number, Leo Burroughs, 443 651 2578. 443 651 2578. If you want to be involved, we're the people to be involved with. We're excited about the future. And as I say, Roots of Scouting Incorporated will be celebrating its 46th anniversary on Saturday, February the 28th of this year.
Wow, you're on the dark side of 50 years. That's an ongoing initiative. I like it.
Well, I'm passing the baton. I'm going to stay very active, but we've got vice presidents, we've got other folks younger than I, and that's the way it should be. I mean, why be selfish? You don't want to necessarily die in office. You want to give other folks an opportunity to lead and be magnanimous in doing so.
Now, after 66 years of activism, have things gotten better for people of African heritage in America, in your opinion?
Not at all.
Okay.
We've been tricked. In other words, I'm looking at a belief that we seem to have a football mentality. It's like football analytics. While we're cheering in the Roman Colosseum for the gladiators to kill each other, 75% of professional football players are black, kill each other. Our community is not doing as well as it needs to be in terms of collectively pooling our resources and ensuring our existence, given the threat from the MAGA movement under the insane leadership of the insane president of the United States, and that crowd which wants to systematically exterminate us by way of genocide. And they seem to be moving ahead. We need a groundswell of resistance, organized resistance, and understanding that this land has been stained by our blood, the blood of our ancestors, for hundreds of years of struggle. Now is not the time not to struggle. We've got to struggle now more than ever. And so my sense is that the constructive activism, and you know what that's about, many people in the audience knows what it's about, has got to be accelerated. We've got to do a better job of listening to each other, setting goals, objectives, and a timetable for achieving goals and objectives, and making it happen.
Okay, so we know oppression is immoral, and oppression is not normal, and it's not natural. Therefore, it's right to fight oppression. If we understand oppression is immoral, but we're trying to, not you and I per se, but Black people historically in America have been trying to integrate and assimilate into an immoral system. Would that make them immoral for trying to integrate and assimilate into an immoral system?
Well, it makes us we are reflective of misdirection. I'll put it that way. If you're integrating into a burning house, there's something wrong with your mind. you know, houses on fire. This is an opportunity to rally, form stronger coalitions, and not just talk about the Congressional Black Caucus or the state legislative Black Caucus, but be about the hard work of making it work, which means you've got to love. The love still has to be the central dynamic by which you love your brothers and sisters by virtue of an enlightened understanding of your heritage and culture. That should bind us together.
Absolutely.
If Jesus is black, and from what I have heard, from what I've read, I've come to the conclusion that Jesus was black. Well, isn't that a perfect segue into Kwanzaa, in the sense that would Jesus have embraced Kwanzaa? He not only ran the money changers out of the temple, but he embraced a collective unity. We, the first man and woman of the earth, we should be about leadership. And I didn't say it's easy, because we have a lot of roadblocks placed in our paths. But by any means necessary, we have to continue to struggle. Absolutely. And that's eternal.
Absolutely. You mentioned MAGA a while back, and I'm understanding now on the world stage they're saying MAGA stands for Make America Go Away. Is the MAGA movement a threat?
Well, it's a threat from the. When I said MAGA, I was talking about Make America Great Again as espoused by the enemy.
Understood.
Now, all I'm saying is, when the rednecks, when the redneck bourbon crackers decide, with the help of the Heritage Foundation, to make America great again, they're talking about reliving history and doing to us what they've done in the past and rolling the clock back. And under no circumstances can we allow that to prevail. We've got to strengthen our willingness to fight and die to protect and defend ourselves. Again, I use the football analogy. Concussions, broken legs, broken arms, whatever it takes. I'm going to do great things on the football field. I'm going to do things that are superlative on the football field. Take that fight, take that energy, that resolve, that courage, and translate it into the juggernaut for Black liberation.
Okay, now I think, and I want your assessment, I think all Black people should be engaged in activism of some sort. You've been an activist for 66 years. My doing this podcast is my activism. Do you agree with that idea that all Black people should be engaged in some kind of activism?
That's right. From the cradle to the grave. If you're just an armchair revolutionary, you just sit down and you tweet. We got more damn tweeters than enough. Right. You're sitting around tweeting. You've got to go beyond tweets. You've got to get out of the suites and into the streets. And if you don't march and demonstrate, which I agree with, then you're going to boycott. And if you don't boycott or participate in selective buying campaigns, you're going to organize businesses that ensure the utilization of collective resources so that we can patronize our own, so that we can uplift our own. All these strategies can work in any time or place. Strikes, national strikes, whatever it takes. But we're in a fight for our existence, and some of us are not woke yet.
Absolutely.
So we don't understand that we're under physical threat of annihilation. We think if I sit in my house with my 2-car garage and I'm comfortable, the Klan won't come for us. Well, the Klan wears shirts and ties and masks if they're ICE, and they'll come for you and send you to F.A.C.T in prison in South America.
That's right. And
they'll say you're not that you're Haitian. They thought you were Haitian.
Right.
We all look alike. We're establishing concentration camps as we speak. They're kidnapping heads of state from their respective countries and bringing them to America for sentencing. They'll kidnap you and me if we hold still for it.
Yeah.
And I'll be damned if I will, as old as I am. And we've got to be understanding that Black Wall Street and all those other institutions that work so well, some of us did not envision that if we were minding our own business, that the enemy would not attack us, because we said, well, we're nonviolent. We don't need to protect and defend what is ours. Well, that's not the case. Folks will attack you whether you mind your own business or not. So you better utilize some drone science. Some military science is very important, as is anchored by AI. Do we need to weaponize drones to balance out the number imbalance? Whatever we need to do, we better protect our own asses or we won't have asses.
I'm glad you said that. The great Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, in her book entitled The ISIS Papers, said that she said racism is war on Black people. And I say,
yes, it is.
I say, we don't understand our situation in the current system within the context of warfare. We will never do anything to solve our problem now or transform the condition of the group. In The Art of War, and you touched on it a minute ago, Sun Tzu talked about the importance of variation in tactics. You talked about boycotting and you talked about demonstrations, and there's any number of other things that you could do, starting your own schools and so forth, that constitute acts of resistance against the system in the war, excuse me, that we're currently fighting. You mentioned Kwanzaa more than once. Kwanzaa obviously is promoting the concepts of Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism. Why?
Amen.
I'm sorry?
Amen. Pan-Africanism. Yes, sir.
Yeah, why is that important to you?
Well, again, we are found all over this planet Earth. I mean, we're all over the place. We're not only in Mother Africa, we're in North America, we're in the Caribbean, we're in Asia, you name it. Very few places where there aren't African people. And we've got to understand that strategically, it's not smart to let somebody run you out of your country. In other words, folks here, some of these people talking about, you can have a passport, ain't nothing wrong with it. You can ultimately do what you want to do. But the idea should not be that a headlong flight to move to Ghana. It's all right, but no. Go visit, unify, support Ghana. Ghana supports the United States. Nigeria was just attacked by the United States recently. They were bombed. What I'm trying to say is that we as a people have to struggle with the reality that we've all been colonized. There's an effort to recolonize us again. There's an effort to enslave us again. And some of us have never gotten off the plantation in the first place. We're still there telling boss, if you sick, boss, I sick too. I love you.
Right.
They gonna revolt, boss. I tell you, them niggas gonna revolt. They gonna fight back. Yeah, Nat Turner did what he had to do. Southampton, Virginia. Reverend Nathaniel Turner did what he had to do.
Absolutely.
He was unafraid. Nobody wants to die. But I'm not going to let you make a sissy out of me. You're not going to punk me, even in a physical context, let alone ideologically. No, it's not happening. And sometimes slaves have to understand, once they realize they're slaves, they damn well better rebel by any means necessary.
The great Dr. John Henry Clark said that enslavement was war on the black family and war on African culture. And I say we must begin to disconnect from their culture and begin to embrace our culture, which is where Kwanzaa becomes important, because it's helping us to reconnect with our cultural heritage as African people. Now, Baba Leo Burroughs, we're almost out of time. I want you to give information on your organization, Roots of Scouting, and also give those phone numbers again for the people that might want to help save the Baltimore School for Boys.
Well, the Roots of Scouting organization, we're Roots of Scouting Incorporated. As I said, we're a 501c3. We have, as our governing body, a athletic development committee, a hospitality, Black Historic Tours committee, emergency preparedness, African Heritage Honors Luncheon, education and scholarship committee, rites of passage, economic development, Kwanzaa, camping committee. We got 9 or 10 committees that you can work to support. I want to give my number again before giving Edwards. I'm Leo Burroughs, and my number is 443-651-2578. 443-651-2578. Our post office box here is Roots of Scouting Incorporated, P.O. Box 41577, 41577, Baltimore, Maryland, 21203 6577, 21203 6577. That's how you contact us by mail. Call us first, if preferably. And Brother Edwin Avent, the CEO of the Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys, his number, Brother Avent's number is 443-226-5118, 443-226-5118. And I so much appreciate your giving us an opportunity to promote our programming, because I'm tired of folks not listening to each other. In other words, any strategy that is well planned with an understanding of what the consequences will be and the courage to implement those strategies must go forward. We should not be fighting each other because we differ in strategies and tactics. We've got to be prayerful, and our resolve has to grow and be strengthened.
That's right. The great Malcolm X said, when we come together, we should come together on the basis of what we have in common, as opposed to talking about what we don't agree on. But
Amen.
Baba Leo Burroughs, I want to thank you for joining us today. I definitely want to bring you back, man. You really convey a lot of information. We're very grateful for that. So we definitely would like to bring you back in the future if you can avail more time from your schedule to talk to us again.
I'd love to do it. We have other things on the agenda, my agenda, that is important that I want to share.
Absolutely. And you just did a Kwanzaa event. We didn't get a chance to talk about that, but we'll maybe touch on that next time. I want to thank everyone. I want to thank everyone that joined us in the chat. Shout out to Henry Cedillo. Respect to Hassan Burton. Salute to DJ Tiger every time. These are my this is the family right here. Baba Leo Burroughs. But either way, I want to again thank you for coming on. I want to encourage you to stay safe and stay Pan-African, brother.
Ashe.
Ashe. All right, brother. We'll talk again soon. All right.
Yes, sir. Come this way, and we'd like to see you whenever you can.
Oh yeah. Well, if I can make it, I will let you know. Definitely.
The third Monday of every month, we meet at 7 o'clock in the evening.
Okay. I'll have to keep that in mind.
Third Monday.
All right. That was Baba Leo Burroughs, longtime revolutionary, been an activist for 66 years. And I'm grateful to be able to sit at his feet and listen to the elders so they can give us that guidance and give us that advice. Baba Leo Burroughs, I want to thank you again for coming on, and we'll speak again soon, okay?
Jumbo.
All right, brother. I see Jumbo. Peace.